How's it going, everybody? This is Cameron White with White Light Astrology, giving you guys your weekly forecast of what the fuck is going on in the universe for October 30th through November 5th. Thank you guys for, liking, sharing, commenting, subscribing, being on my channel. I'm so glad you guys can be here. We are going to get into a very exciting week. This is going to be so much fun because today, Monday, we had the Mercury-Jupiter conjunction. As Mercury's been in Scorpio and, we're getting a little bit more critical with our thinking, seeing things more in depth and being, things are becoming a lot more exposed as Mercury makes its conjunction to Jupiter, where Jupiter in Scorpio for this past year has been kind of like, hey, where do we need to focus, like not necessarily focus on the bad stuff, but what bad things are present and how can we make this a little bit better, a little bit less filled with tension. And as Mercury conjuncts Jupiter, it's also entering shadow, where Mercury is going to retrograde at 13 degrees Sagittarius here in the next couple weeks. And so now Mercury is in its shadow period. Mercury is now in this position where it's going to come back all over this spot that it's going to be moving forward in. And I think it's important to realize that Mercury's conjunction to Jupiter, how aware of things you're going to become of, how I don't want to say precise, but very specific about the way that you look at things and kind of elevating that thought. As Mercury moves forward, we're going to be playing with this more. But starting off with Tuesday, October 30th, tomorrow, we have the Venus-Uranus opposition. This is the second opposition that we're going to have of 3. Actually, it's going to be, of 3. So as Venus hits 0 degrees Scorpio and she gets ready to retrogress back into Libra, and she's at this critical moment, she's, now gone through the underworld, she's becoming the morning star now. Uranus is in Taurus at that 0 degree and it's retrograde. Uranus wants to shake things up. Uranus wants to get us out of our comfort zones. And Venus and Scorpio is kind of like, Uranus and Taurus is kind of like nudging at Venus to like, do something, like speak up, like fight, like let's get it out of you already. And so until like tomorrow, you may feel a little bit, a little bit anxious, a little bit, critical. As Venus hits that 0 degree mark and opposes Uranus again, this is going to be a really big time to really focus on where are you placing that value? Where do you really want to focus on? What do you want to control and what needs to be worth letting go of? And as we move forward, because the next day we're going to have Venus retrograde back into Libra, we're going to be able to balance that out and mitigate that some more. But also on Tuesday, Uranus and Venus will also be squaring the nodes. And this comes back down to the nodes. The North Node is still in Leo, the South Node is still in Aquarius. We're still trying to get as much juice out of this 0 degree Leo point where we're talking about, like that natural expression of Leo, like being the light. Where do you want to feel? How do you want to express? How do you want to love? How do you want to be loved? How do you want to be, it's just Leo stuff. It's just your overall beingness and wanting to amplify that. So as Venus and Uranus are in the middle of, that North Node square, like right at the bending points, like this is going to be a really big time to look at things in a very big perspective. Also on Tuesday, we have Mercury going into Sagittarius, where Mercury doesn't do too well in Sagittarius. Mercury is, not Monday, my bad, Tuesday, let's reverse that. Mercury will be going into Sagittarius. It's his detriment. Mercury likes to be specific. Mercury likes to be, he's the messenger. He wants to give you the word. It's got to be right. Well, in Sagittarius, it's kind of like he has a very long quest to go on for this message, and it can get a little bit lost in translation over that amount of time that he has to get there. So with Mercury being in Sagittarius, it can feel very overwhelming, and with Mercury's conjunction to Jupiter and everything, which I will be making a Mercury retrograde video actually tonight, and I'll be posting that sometime this week for you guys, and I'll be talking more about that. But as Mercury goes through Sagittarius, it's now going to be a little bit overwhelmed. It's going to be a little bit, I don't want to say chaotic because it is going to be on the more positive note, but it is just going to be a little bit overwhelming. Slow down on your words. I know I can totally take that advice. I'm sure I'm talking really fast right now. But it's about retracing your steps. It's about making sure you're getting the message clear because there's a whole lot of message to, basically speak out. And we're also with Mercury in shadow right now. So this is going to be a time to we're not done with this yet. We're not just flying forward. We're going to come back over this. So to move forward, I know we just talked about Tuesday. Wednesday on Halloween, we have the moon going into Leo. It's going to conjunct the North Node. It's going to be right in between Venus and Uranus. And this is really important because this Venus-Uranus stuff is going to be very heavy. I mean, the Venus retrograde in Scorpio has been so, I feel like, predominant in people's lives right now. And as the moon conjuncts the North Node and it's in Leo, we're going to feel very high, mighty, and proud, and we're going to feel very ready to take on the direction that we want to and kind of feed our hunger, because that's that North Node energy right there. And we're going to be ready to kind of like step into that role of like, okay, this is what I want. I have the confidence to go about this. I have the capability and the heart to do it, is another good word for that. Also on Wednesday, it's going to be conjuncting North Node, squaring Venus, but then Venus ingresses into Libra. And this is really important because we've talked about this, for the past couple of weeks. Venus is in her, detriment in Scorpio. She's in a very scary place, and she gets to run back to home to Libra, where she is her natural self, where she can express herself naturally. And she is going to be retrograde. She's still going to be kind of like, a little fucked up from, being retrograde in Scorpio, but she's back home now. She's in loving arms, and she's ready to take stuff on. She's ready to do, the healing. She's ready for things to become better again. She's ready for things to feel better, be more connected, be more brought together. Like that's that Venus and Libra stuff, is bringing things together. So as she goes back into Libra, this is going to feel very calm. This is going to feel like we're making the right decision. We're going in the right way, but you just have to settle into it. Like I said, we're still all going to be a little bit angsty and shooken up from, that opposition and everything. So moving into Thursday, not a whole lot's happening. The moon will be in Leo still, and it'll square Jupiter and it'll oppose Mars. So this is when it's going to be a little bit more like, okay, we've made these decisions. Where do we go from here? What does this decision really look like after I make this decision? What does it look like acting it out? What does it look like actually doing it? And as it squares Jupiter, it's going to be kind of like, oh, I never saw things through this angle before, or I never, realized this part of me in this in-depth way. So it's going to be kind of in-depth, but you're going to kind of have not an issue, but you're really going to look for how to make the next decision or how to make the next action based off your decisions. Then that's really it on Thursday. And that's November 1st, by the way, the first of the month. Then on Friday, November 2nd, we have the moon going into Virgo, where this is usually, lunar transits aren't the biggest deal, but there's a lot going on with the moon once the moon goes into Virgo. She is going to be squaring Mercury at the early degrees of Sagittarius, early degrees of Virgo. This is when you're going to be like, okay, now I see how things are kind of getting ahead of the pace. Now I'm starting to see where I need to kind of be more calculated, be more specific, be more precise. It's also going to be trining Saturn and trining Uranus. So this is good to kind of like see where Mercury and Sagittarius is kind of going for you. Like, see what's kind of going a little bit fast, it's going to be kind of exciting too. Mercury likes good news, and Sagittarius is all about good news, especially as Jupiter goes into there. Really just kind of look at that and make sure, again, you're crossing all your T's, you're dotting all your I's, and get that Saturn and Capricorn vibe again as the moon is in Virgo. Like, okay, it's time to get shit done. It's time to lay things out in a very grounded, feasible, tangible way. Then it's also going to be opposing Neptune. And this is really important too, because Mercury's retrograde in Sagittarius has a lot to do with Neptune. And so as the moon opposes Neptune while it's in Virgo, and it's going to be doing that for 2 days, this is a good time to be like, hey, you get a little bit of an insight and some clarity on these specific situations. So like whatever's going on then, that's going to be the clearest message. So make sure you realize that. Make sure, while the moon's in Virgo, it's just about doing things tangibly. Like while the moon's in Taurus, it's about like having things tangibly, like enjoying them. And then the moon in Virgo is like, okay, like let's not necessarily organize it, but let's, use it to do something else. Like it's like investment, versus Capricorn is like having that investment returned to you. So while that's happening, the next day on Saturday, November 3rd, we have the Sun Uranus opposition ending. So since the sun's been at like, 25, 26 degrees Libra, it's been starting to oppose Uranus. Things have been a lot more, explosive. Things have been a lot more, Uranus is just very close to us right now. We are also very close to Uranus. Like that Uranus energy is just more tingling. It's more present than normal. So as the Sun Uranus opposition ends, we're finally chilling down a little bit more with the craziness. Uranus is all about, liberation, breakthrough, explosions. It's the wild card. It's like that's finally dying down a little bit. So that's going to be really nice. I did throw that in there just to say that, for you to calm you guys down. On Saturday, November 3rd, Mercury will begin its square to Neptune. And this is also a really big thing, because as Mercury flies forward in Sagittarius, he's going to go pretty fast in Sagittarius before he retrogrades. He retrogrades at 13 degrees Sagittarius, exactly squaring Neptune. So as Mercury begins the square to Neptune, where again, Mercury's getting a little bit ahead of himself. And, Neptune and Pisces loves to confuse things, loves to dilute things. Like, it likes to make things foggy. It's kind of like, like most like alcohol and liquor is clear, but there's like I think it's hypnotic or something like that. It's like this thick, glittery, murky, you know, blue and purple like alcohol, and it's like that is so like what Neptune Pisces is doing to like kind of like everything on a very little level. But as Mercury goes into Sagittarius and it starts to square Neptune, this whole fogginess, this confusion is going to start to come in a little bit more. So as Mercury flies forward in Sagittarius, like again, it's kind of like we're walking into a forest that we've never been in before, and it's starting to get foggy. Instead of just keep moving forward, how about we put down something and to be able to retrace our steps with, like putting down quarters, you know, during our path, or rocks or something like that, so we can retrace our path. Because it is going to get really foggy, and we're not going to necessarily get lost. It's not going to be like a bad loss, but we are going to be like, whoa, for a second. So just be really clear about that. And I just wanted to make the note that the Mercury square Neptune begins on Saturday, November 3rd. So that's when that's going to begin, and we're going to be dealing a lot with that. Moving on to Sunday, we have the moon going into Libra. Woo woo! Because moon in Virgo is going to be a little intense. The moon's going to go into Libra. It's going to square Saturn, where the moon in Libra is kind of like, okay, you know, now that we're starting to wander into this forest, like, okay, where does this person want to go? Where does this person want to go? But what do we need to get done? What's the actual agenda here? As the moon goes into Libra, you're going to be kind of like, all right, how do I delegate this? How do I bring some peace, some balance to this? How do I make it work? It's kind of like, you know, making sure everybody gets their cake and eating it. It will also, it's squaring Saturn. Saturn's going to be in Capricorn. It's going to be at 5 degrees now. Saturn's basically, again, I can't hit on this enough. Just get your shit done. Get it together. You know, do what you got to do. And as the moon squares it, it's going to be kind of like, all right, where do you have to kind of balance things out? Where do you kind of have to, not justify yourself, but give yourself some wiggle room to work with people and to kind of like make sure it's kind of like creating a win-win situation for the sake of Saturn and Capricorn. So then, also on Sunday, November 4th, Jupiter will be at 29 degrees Scorpio. So that's really exciting. That's when all this Jupiter and Scorpio stuff is going to be like, hey, one last boom, you know. In my Jupiter and Sagittarius video, I was talking about how 29 degrees Scorpio specifically, but mostly Scorpio is, imagine this is a rubber band. And down here, don't mind my paper, down here is like negative, bad things, dark things, whatever. And up here is positive, good things or whatever. Scorpio is you pulling this rubber band all the way down. So like pulling this rubber band all the way down until you get to that, I like to say the 29-degree point of Scorpio, where you're ready to let it go, where you're ready to accept something new and charge after it like a maniac, and you let it go, and that rubber band goes all the way up here where all the good feelings are, into Sagittarius, where Jupiter's playground is. So as Jupiter hits that 29-degree Scorpio, like, don't be surprised if things start coming alive in a very, like, real way. But it's good stuff, because then right after that, Jupiter goes into Sag, and everybody's happy again. Then Monday, by the time we get back here, we have the moon conjuncting Venus at the later degrees of Libra. We're getting ready for the new moon in Scorpio, setting all these new intentions after dealing with all the Scorpio stuff for the longest time. And it will also be trining Mars. The moon will be trining Mars. So this is kind of like, again, being able to apply this stuff, being able to move forward with this stuff and feel a little bit better. And then we have Uranus squaring the North Node and South Node exactly, where we're still in this, you know, basically everything's very volatile right now. It can go up, it can go down. But like I said, I think last week, we're going into a really big change. We're going, like, everything's kind of moving over. So expect this kind of stuff and roll with it, you know. If you know that your plane is going to experience turbulence, you're not going to be so wowed when all of a sudden the plane's shaking. I'm telling you guys right now, we're going to experience some turbulence. It's going to be good. I would definitely not be saying if it's like, oh, it's going to be bad. No, this is going to be good stuff, but it is going to take us a moment. The biggest thing I could suggest, though, with Mercury being in Sagittarius, slow your roll. Just retrace your steps. Know that you're going to come back over this again. So with that being said, thank you guys so much for liking, commenting, sharing, subscribing, doing whatever it is that you do. I'm so happy that you're here. So happy I could do this. And yeah, I'll be seeing you guys for next week's horoscope.